welcome back to the channel. In this series, we are comparing Stanley to Lie Nielsen. Now, if you know anything about those two brands, you know that they are very similar. So we're going to take a deep dive into their specs, compare them side by side, see what Lie Nielsen changed, and maybe talk about why. Stick with us. So first, what is a beading plane? Well, it creates beads. It creates them on the edges of boards. There's different profiles and stuff. You can do beads and coves. This side, I did a bead, but it was too close to the edge, so the edge tore off. But this is an example of what it does. This is the Lie Nielsen set of cutters, so you can see it can make all of these different profiles on the edges of boards like that. I will do a video that shows you how to use one of these planes, but in the Lie Nielsen versus Stanley series, I haven't been doing that, so I wanted to focus on just the differences between the planes, but keep an eye out for that other video, and let's dive into the specs. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So here they are side by side. We have the Lie Nielsen and we have the Stanley. Right away, you're going to notice that Lie Nielsen again turned it into bronze. This tends to be a thing that they do throughout all planes, is they add bronze, which of course we all like. That changes the weight, but only slightly. So the Lie Nielsen comes in at just over 1 pound. The Stanley comes in at 15 ounces. So I'd say maybe like a 2-ounce difference. The part right here, I don't know what it's called, but Lie Nielsen tapered the sides in where Stanley's are straight out, as you can see. So the Lie Nielsen is 4 1/8, the Stanley is 4 1/2. I don't see this affecting the functioning of the plane at all. I think it was just a style change that they wanted to add. Now, length from handle to handle, the Lie Nielsen is 11 inches and the Stanley is 11 3/8, so Lie Nielsen did make it a little bit smaller. Now, before I take these apart and show you the parts, I wanted to point out something on the Stanley here. So, when you have these thumb screws, look how close it is in there. So, as you're tightening and loosening this, you don't have a lot of space. Lie Nielsen turned those into round ones, so you have a lot more space in here to be able to do what you need to do. So, I do like that change. But all right, let me take them apart and we will check them out. All right, so let's check out just the bodies themselves. So here is the Lie Nielsen.
It's a little dirty. Stanley.
The handles are pretty much the same. They're both comfortable to use. I would say Lie Nielsen's are maybe a little bit smaller, but not significant. The next thing you'd probably notice right away is for the Lie Nielsen, this comes out. So I call it the blade clamp. It comes out completely. So when you're changing out the irons, you have to hold the back of this, slide the iron in, tighten it down, and then those two little, I don't know, whatever those are called, on this side, clamp the blade into place. With the Stanley, these points over here, that's what I should have called them. The points over here go far enough that it doesn't come out. I'm going to leave that up to preference because it doesn't affect the functioning of the plane. For the Stanley, you don't have to hold on to this to put an iron in and out, which I do like, but I think for like storage and shipping, it's handy that this comes out sometimes. So, again, doesn't affect the functioning of the plane, but it's a difference. Here are the screws that I told you. Again, Lie Nielsen turned them into round ones, which I like because they're easier to unscrew than these ones are. Now for the flat fence, Lie Nielsen's lengthwise is 1 3/4. The Stanley is 1 7/8. Now, I wish they would have kept it longer because it is a reference surface, but I don't know that this much right here is really going to make that much of a difference. They also beefed them up. So because it's out of bronze, they made it thicker than this one, which I like because if you drop it on the floor, you're safer than if you drop this one on the floor. They also made it a little bit skinnier. I don't know that that's going to focus. There we go. It's just slightly skinnier than the Stanley. So probably just to save on materials, they just made this a little bit smaller, but I really don't think it's going to affect the functioning of the plane. For the curved fence, they made it longer, but they made it skinnier, but they still beefed it up. So lengthwise for this one, the Lie Nielsen is 1 1/2, the Stanley is 1 3/8. Here is the difference in like skinniness. width right there. So they made it a little bit, I can't even say smaller. I think it would just equal out to be the same thing. Again, this isn't going to affect the functioning of the plane, but it is a difference that I notice. Now, with all of these, if you're curious, this indent right here is when you are sliding the fence over, it doesn't smack into the blade. It goes into here so you don't hit right here and mess up the cutter.
So here is the flat fence. Here is the curved fence.
I did use both of these planes, and I did not notice a difference at all in like functioning or chatter or anything like that. When you use a beading tool, you just have to take very light passes until you get to where you want. There is no difference in here other than maybe like way under a 1/16 of an inch, this lip on the sides right here, which doesn't make a difference in my opinion because they can slide in here and they stay square on both of them. It still has a little play. Stanley's is the same thing, still has a little bit of play. Stanley has a little bit more, but yes, and what I want to mention also is both of these are going to function just fine for you. If you want to go Lie Nielsen because you like the bronze, go for it. If you find a Stanley in the wild, go for it. If you buy a Stanley and it is missing all of the different cutters and stuff that you can get, the Lie Nielsen cutters will fit in the Stanley. So don't stress on that. Buy the plane and then go get the cutter separately. So as you can see, they are pretty simple tools. Lie Nielsen didn't change that much. So of course they made it out of bronze, which we all like bronze. They made it so that blade clamp can come out, which I like. They also made the screws round, which they're easier to tighten and loosen that way. But other than that, they're pretty simple. If you find the Stanley in the wild, just remember that the Lie Nielsen irons will fit it because it's very common to find a Stanley without the irons. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, anything like that, feel free to let us know down below. If you guys have one of these planes and you like them a lot, let us know that also. If you don't like these planes, let us know why. So alright, I hope you guys enjoyed and have a good day.